been 1,674 days since creative mode came out, and only OG creators are going to remember any of this stuff I'm about to mention. Now I want to know how many of these you remember in the comments below. Now I got this idea from CypherPK, who did this recently with Battle Royale, and I really loved watching his video. I thought it'd be fun for us to do it in creative mode. So first, only OGs will remember playground mode. This was really the first iteration of creative, where people could have free reign on the Battle Royale island and build whatever they want in under 4 hours. I actually did a whole bunch of different things, like building arenas where you could bounce around and fight each other. I even built a Mario Kart course and had a race with others in under 4 hours. The problem was nothing saved, and anything you built was destroyed after the session. Number 2 is when creative actually came out, bam, creative mode. You had to buy the battle pass to get access to creative mode, which I did. But after a couple of weeks, it did open up to everyone. To get early access, you had to purchase the battle pass. Number 3, and I don't have any footage of this, but back when it first came out, when you wanted to get a pretty fab gallery out, you would equip it, and now you get this little preview of where you wanted to place it down, and if you place it down, it places down. But back then, you had to throw it out like this, and it would appear in front of you, and then you could pick up what you wanted, and what you didn't want, you could just delete. It was such a janky system. Also, when it first came out, when you came to get a new island, there was only like 2 island templates. Maybe there was 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly, but this was essentially the island that everything in creative happened on. Oh man, I haven't been on this island in forever. This brings back memories. And this island was just kind of not great, because you can see there's like elevation changes on it. You got the hills going down, and then this is another thing that we had. We used to have the rift here to get back to the hub. It was on every island and template island that we had, and sometimes you could just accidentally go into it while you're building. Oh, that was so annoying. It's funny they still have these props here, and even now we still have to come in and delete all of these if we don't want these things taking up memory, and all of the trees and rocks. Oh man, OG creative. Next, only OG players will remember when the creative phone was actually in the player's inventory. You can see down here as I'm building out this map, it's in my inventory and took up an entire slot. Building back then was such a pain too, because all we had was the grid system. You had to build everything on the grid. No walls could come off of this grid system. You could place props down randomly, but the walls you couldn't do. But there was one secret only a few knew about. In the castle prefab, which guys, by the way, is huge and takes up most of this island, but I'm gonna put it down to show you. If you came in here and went up behind the throne right here, there was this wall. This wall was the only wall that was a prop in all of creative. So you could pick this up, and then you could place this however you want it. This wall was one I saw Word Andrew use a lot in his dungeon prison escape, and it threw off so many people because everyone just thought it had to be on the grid. But he would come in and place the wall down like it was on the grid, but he would make like a little hole in the ground like that only you could like get through it, and it was so hard to find those holes because people weren't expecting it. And then one huge thing we didn't have back then was the ability to phase through things. As you can see, I can fly right through this. Back then we had it so you couldn't go through walls at all. So if you were building and you accidentally built yourself into the box, you'd be stuck in your box because you couldn't phase through it, and you'd either have to delete something or build doorways into your creation so you could get in and out of it. Gosh guys, there's so much more with building that we didn't have back in the day. Like now we can multi-select, you can like highlight a whole bunch of things and move it over and build it somewhere else. Back then you could only copy one thing at a time, so it just made building so much more difficult. On top of that, we only had one speed. This was it. This was as fast as we could go, flying around, so which was sometimes way too slow. I mean, just to get to the opposite end of this island took forever. I mean, going max speed right now, but when you're trying to sculpt and you want to go a little slower, you couldn't, so sometimes it was too fast. Now we've got like supersonic speeds at 10 speed that you can, oh my gosh, like you can fly so fast. And then we've got 0.1 speed, which is so slow. It's so much nicer. I still can't believe we only had that one speed for so long. They didn't introduce that until just like a year or two ago. And when it first released, we had almost like no devices. The only devices we had could attach to things like this. So it was like the trap device, poison dart. Actually, I don't even know if the poison dart trap came out like right away. I think that was later. Bouncers were certainly popular. That was one of the OG devices. You had the ATK, but right now it's on a plate. So we have a lot of different devices now that are on plates, so you can place them wherever you want. Back then, when especially with vehicles, they had to be placed on a tile. It was the only way to place anything down anywhere, which actually hampered us from getting new vehicles that Epic was starting to release in Chapter 2. Which reminds me, we did have the mech in Chapter 1. Oh man, I made a whole map about mechs, which was really fun to play until they broke the mechs. And then Epic refused to release new vehicles because it was on a new system that they hadn't incorporated yet into creative mode. So you couldn't have mechs in Battle Royale, but you also couldn't have any of the new vehicles like the cars, the motorcycles, nothing. Oh man, I forgot. There was even a thing you could do with the mechs where you could create like an earthquake using the mechs all around. It was wild. But then when Epic finally released the new cars that we could drive, that took away all of the old vehicles like the mech. So we don't have the mech anymore. And I don't know if we'll ever see it again unless Epic releases it again in Battle Royale. Speaking of Battle Royale, do you remember the block? The block was such a cool way to feature creators in the Battle Royale island itself. The whole block was a place where creators could make a point of interest, and then Epic would put it in the Battle Royale game. It took it away with Chapter 2, and I wish they would bring it back. It was such a good way to feature creators and just help people feel really connected to the game. Not only that, with the Battle Royale island, you used to be able to see it from here. I don't remember exactly where it was. Maybe it was off like back over there. I don't remember. But you could see it from creative mode, and you could glitch to it, which the glitchers and hackers out there really took advantage of. They figured out ways you could get to the Battle Royale island, and then they would copy all of the stuff that was on the BR island and bring it to creative mode. So they glitched in all of these different props, which ended up breaking creative mode because it wasn't optimized for the mode. And it wasn't just props that they glitched in. They even glitched in some of the items from different collabs that Epic was doing, and even got Thanos in the game. I remember when it took over Tiny Town, which is this awesome creative map that Team Power made, and Thanos just kind of rained terror down on that map for an entire weekend before Epic could fix it. I mean, that was wild. Back to building for just a second. Like I said, when we first started, we didn't have a lot of devices. One of the most crucial devices we ever got in creative mode was the trigger, but we didn't have the trigger for like the first 6 months. Creative mode came out in December of 2018, and the trigger didn't come out until June of 2019. So people were making all sorts of maps and things without even being able to trigger anything. But even when we got the trigger, we only had like 8 channels that you could send signals to. We eventually got much more. It was like 250 or something. I don't remember how many we even had. It doesn't matter anymore because we don't even have the channel system. Now we've got the event system. But I remember when we got triggers, that like changed the game for creative mode. Another thing that was a game changer for me was the creator hubs. Creator hubs were so beautiful and so cool. And I loved when people started putting quests in their hubs. And I made a ton of videos showing people how to do the hub quests. And it was such a blessing to me because I got a lot of views from it. But eventually people got burnt out from doing hub quests and we had to move on. But I loved the creative hubs and another way to show off different creators. And the creators is really what it's all about. One of my favorite things that ever happened in creative mode was the Scissors Deathrun. Scissors was a big influencer in the Battle Royale scene, and he decided to jump into creative mode and make his own death run. And he challenged every big creator at that time to get in and try and beat his death run, and then he would give them $10,000 for the fastest time. There was all sorts of speedrunners, rage clips, and everything around this death run. I felt like it brought so much attention to creative mode and completely changed the meta to death runs and parkour maps. Big creators were getting millions and millions and millions of views playing these death runs, and I think a lot of that was spurred on because of Scissors and the hype he created around the mode. And we're kind of seeing that right now with the going up maps, so I'm hoping we see a big wave of new types of maps and players in the mode. It's exciting to just see the hype around a map and creative again. And now we got to talk about glitches. For years we had to deal with the storm coming in and like destroying our build sessions. It doesn't happen anymore, but that was one of the most annoying glitches. And I always had to do videos on glitches because there was just so many of them, and there continues to be tons of glitches. But OG creators have seen it all. Now, I asked on Twitter some of the OGs what they remember. We got some great responses. I love Fossil Southie's answer here. We had the guided rocket. I forgot that we had that. It was only for a little bit, but it was totally glitched. And then check this image out here. This was the game settings. There was like 5 settings we had. Game mode, team time limit, spawn location, and post-game spawn location. Like, that's crazy. That was basically it. I mean, look at this one here. We got the guided missile, but we got the memory bar on the bottom. Like, the total layout of creative has completely changed. I'm curious what you guys think. What were some of the OG things that I left out of this list? Let me know in the comments below.